for over 35 years and counting. So she will take care of any question specifically for a special educator, right? Next slide, Saloni. So we would love for this session to be as interactive as possible. So feel free to speak up if the need arises. If you have a comment, or if say you didn't hear something and you want me to just repeat myself, I have this habit of speaking really fast. So if you want me to slow down, let us know. But if you have specific questions, then I would suggest you note them down. You can either put them on the chat, or we'll take them up person by person at the end, where we'll have like a more rigorous Q&A session for about 15 to 20 minutes at the end. Yeah. Um, Speaking of which, this is how we plan to break the hour up. Saloni, next slide. I will introduce you to Tactopus and the multisensory learning side of things. Saloni will talk about, and also Shiva will demonstrate how we use the approach with our products. And finally, Saloni will tell you how you can use it, whether it's at home or in the classroom. And special educators on this call, I'm sure you're already aware of a lot of these things, but we hope you'll have some key takeaways. And more importantly, for the parents here, since you are key decision makers for your children, especially since they are either too young or they are unable to make choices of their own, I hope this session will be really useful to you. Yeah. So just to give you a quick background about who is conducting the session today, and what is Tactopus and what do we do, let's start with that. Uh, so Tactopus, we focus on creating inclusive learning aids for young children when it comes to learning, for say about ages of 3 and above. So what we do is, when I say inclusive, we ensure that children who have disabilities, whether it's visual, developmental learning, they have access, not only have access to, but also are able to participate in equal learning opportunities, right? So next slide. What the team does is identify gaps in the learning ladder, and they try and bridge them to tech enabled multisensorial play first products. Now, what that means, while it might sound complicated, Shiva will show you the products later. So, what we focus on is creating an entire wholesome learning experience. So, there's touch, there's sound, there's vision, and things like that, so that children, irrespective of disability, can use them, right? So our products range from anywhere from tactile books to flashcards, games, puzzles, and we have a mobile app. It's available free online, and we use that to use image processing, which is basic QR code technology, to augment audio interactions for the child on the games, on the books, and on the cards. I'm sure all this jargon will be simpler when you see the products themselves. Yeah. So I've already used the words multisensory. I've used the words accelerated learning and things like that. But what does it really mean for your child and or the children you work with, right? So before we get into the multi side of the senses, let's talk about the senses themselves. So you and I are, or at least I definitely was very used to talking only about the five senses that generally people talk about. Like the movie Sixth Sense was an extra add on to the existing five senses. But as a parent or as a special educator, you need to consider all the seven senses that actually a child uses, and the integration of these senses for them to understand their environment, understand their surroundings, collect data, process it. So when we talk about multisensory, let's talk about all the seven senses that a child will need to use to learn and adapt to the situation around them. Now, um, one second, I just don't know if the slide is correct. Yeah. So if I look at all the seven senses, I'm sure you must be familiar with, so I'll just quickly go through them. You have vision, which is that, of course, of sight. You have olfaction, which is that of smell. Gustation, that of taste. Audition is that of hearing. Somatosensory, if you've not heard of it, is essentially just basic touch and feel. And vestibular, now that is dealing with the inner ear. So anything leading to the child's body balance. Okay. And finally, we have proprioception, which is having to do with the awareness of one's body, like the child's position, their muscular movements, whether it's like pushing, pulling, stretching, and things like that. Right? So now we've gone over the senses. Now you know what you are supposed to cater to when it comes to the child adapting to the environment. But when it comes to learning specifically, and especially with education, um, we look where if you're looking only at traditional methods, what are the problems that a child faces when they if they have to learn? What is the problem that the teacher faces or the parent faces to teach this child, right? So if you look at a classroom setup, researchers showed that 1/3 of every classroom achieves the expected learning outcomes within a particular stipulated time by that school or organization. Now, what happens and what do you think of the 2/3 of children who are not reaching those learning outcomes? Is it because of their own inability to learn? Can we blame the teacher? Can we blame the school environment? Can we blame their home situation? So researchers put all their efforts into figuring this out. And while, of course, bits and pieces have to do with how a child reacts in a classroom, it all boiled down to the fact that as diverse as there are children in a classroom, so much so diverse are their learning needs. And this is how they'll cope separately in their own pace, in their own time, and that's what we're about as well. So after multiple failed approaches to trying something else, they also had multiple successful research outcomes, one of which was the multisensory approach. Now, as a terminology in its own, it's very basic. It's essentially using a teaching method that would involve or engage more than one sense at a time, right? So if you involve the use of visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, which is more tactile pathways, you build a multisensory approach that can enhance a child's memory, ability to learn. And this could also involve like taste, smell, movement, and things like that, but they are still add-ons, right? Because under the entire gamut of multisensory learning, there are different schools of thought as well. Like Murphy believe that if a child has to learn a concept, yeah, if a child has to learn a new concept, it is best taught using four modalities. Now, what are these four modalities? Are essentially activating their seeing, hearing, and touching. So, say tracing, hearing, writing, all of this represent these modalities. Now, if I have to give you an exact example, say a child has to learn how to spell, right? So you might say the word, they will say the word, they will have to write the word, they will check the word against the original word, they will trace it, or then they will write it from memory and check it again. There's like an entire process of multiple senses being used, right? And then you repeat the whole thing for them to actually learn, right? So now, what if the child has special needs? Say they have cognitive limitations, they're having difficulty in more than one area of education, with learning itself, or just staying still, concentrating, paying attention. So things like this are children have certain issues with that. So say we'll take an example of a differently able child who has a problem with processing visual information. Yeah. So say the child is learning about lions. Now they have a book, they have a picture of a lion, they have some text saying, okay, the lion is the king of the jungle. It has a very majestic mane. It has a muscular body. The tip of its tail is bushy, or something like that. And it says the lion's roar. Now, a child will only gather a certain amount of information from that book and from that text and from that picture. Now, if you replace this with best case scenario, that would probably be the child meeting a lion and engaging with it and then learning completely about a lion. But from a more logical standpoint, say we give the child another book. Now, the book will have a picture of the lion, but now imagine that picture is raised, right? It's textured. The mane is furry in itself. It has a nice little texture. The body has a different texture. The tail has a different texture, and the little tip has fur on it as well. And when the child is touching and feeling, it's figuring out the body, and then imagine the lion roars, right? So when this happens, imagine the learning of the child. They are so much more engaged. Um, and then this kind of hands-on learning makes the child take an active role in it, right? It enhances their ability to collect, remember information. and what the child learned before about the lions and what the child is learning now. They make that connection and solve sort of complexities in their head. And all this is just using non-verbal problem solving, really. So ultimately, using a multisensory approach in a learning environment, it helps meet the varying needs of all children, giving them all a chance to succeed. Yes, at their own space and at their own time, but more so effectively rather than a regular traditional method. So, as a teaching method, it doesn't necessarily cover the individual preferences of each child, right? Like, what if you have a child who didn't like the sound of the lion roaring, or who didn't doesn't like the color yellow, or didn't like the touch and feel of certain things, or doesn't like music, or doesn't want to do something? Then that's where you come in as a parent or as a special educator to pick and choose what works best with the child. Like all of them will work, but to certain different degrees, right? But over traditional methods, they will work so much better. So, so this is where you come in, and also right now, this is where Saloni will come in. She will walk you through the products that we have, how they work, how multisensory approach we use on a day-to-day at our very core, and then how we customize it to the needs of kids. And also, then she will play devil's advocate and maybe tell you, if not this, then what, and how to go about the attack. Yeah. So yeah, over to you, Saloni.
Hi, can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Saloni. I am another founder at Tactopus. And I'll take you through what we do at Tactopus, how we integrate multisensory uh, approaches in our product building, and how you could use it. Um, so now you have gone through a brief introduction of what multisensory learnings are, and we know that they are great for kids. But how would you convert that into products or tools that you could use? Um, so I'll talk about how we do it. We work with parents, schools, educators who work with children with multiple different disabilities. So we are creating content that is more generic and more inclusive for multiple children. We also design for inclusion for children with and without disabilities, right? So we'll be showing you some of our products soon. Um, but what I want to talk about right before that is what makes the products, right? So we work and design the products so that they trigger three of your sensory inputs. We have lots and lots of tactile elements. These are raised images. We also include braille so that it's inclusive for children with low vision or blindness, and who are trying to get acquainted with braille literacy. We have bright, colorful visuals, large print, so that it's easier to read for children, and that the colors appeal to a lot of the children that we work with. We also have a digital component which brings in the audio side of the things. That acts like a companion for the physical products and also as an additional layer of information. And using these three, four elements, we encode information into each product, which maps to the learning outcome, which is what your goal is, right? Uh, so for example, if your goal is teaching 1, 2, 3, 4, there will be tactile letters, there will be tactile countables, and there will be an audio component which would be saying 1, 2, or saying click, click, that is 2, right? So stuff like that. And yeah, I'll jump into what they actually look like. So I'll ask Shiva to sort of take over the demonstration side of things. Um, so that you can have a quick look at what we've been talking about so far. Shiva?
Yeah. So, can you guys see my screen?
Um,
guys. So this is the complete Tactopus range of products what we have here right here. And towards your right, what you see is the non-tech stuff that we have, and on the left is all the tech-enabled um, products that we have. So by tech-enabled, I mean like it works in tandem with a mobile app which recognizes what's in front of it and you adds an auditory component to the whole learning experience. So to give you a quick demo, this is what the app looks like, and on the app there are like multiple modules for each and every product on it. So let me just start with a quick demo of a multisensory book. This one's called What Makes You Special. It is an animal book. So you just go onto the app and choose that particular product and give start reading. And from then onwards, the interaction with the phone ends, and you place the phone on the phone stand that is designed to hold this phone. So this is like the Tactopus phone stand, and it is designed to be easily assembled by a person with visual impairment as well. So as you can see, there are like multiple dots, and it is in 4 components. So it is easy to assemble, and once you do that, like this is where the phone goes, and in front of it
What
is
makes you special? A multi-sensory experience brought to you by Tactopus. Front cover. This book is about all the special things about animals. Open the book to start on this adventure.
so as the app recognizes the QR code which is on the top right of each page, it adds an auditory component, and we have also added Braille on to the bottom of each page for the children or parents who are teachers who are Braille literate to understand what's on every page. So the child essentially has to like flip through each page,
This story was
and
originally written
the
by
audio
Louise
works
Sorensen
in
on
tandem.
a
So
story. Who are you? I am a tiger. What makes you special? I am the largest of the cat family. I am very strong and brave.
So
Of all
the
tigers, I am the
app
best.
starts by reading what's on the left of the
There is
page.
a large
It
tiger in this
runs through
page.
the
We see it on
verbal
its left.
text,
It
and
is
then it
framed in
moves
white
on to
overlay.
explaining the
At the right
illustration
side of
which
the
is on the
page,
right.
we
And
can
as
see
you
a
can see,
large
these are like
story.
visually appealing with
Tigers are
vibrant
very
colors,
strong with
and they have
emotions.
an
They have to
additional
hunt
component
animals for food.
which
They are
is
usually orange with brown
rich
stripes.
textures which describes the animal. So over here, if you can notice, like these are all different textures which are used to depict the different components of the animal. So the like this helps the child to touch and feel, and it enhances all the multiple sensorial inputs for them to like the learning experience is amplified through this.
What makes you special? I
So
collect
similarly, we
nectar
have a
from
bee
flowers. I
and
love flowers.
a frog.
Who are you? I am a frog. What makes
And a turtle. So this is how this particular book works,
I am
and
a turtle. What
this is
makes
a
you
one-way
special?
interaction. Is
I have a hard shell that protects me all the
but we also
time.
have a my counting book which helps the children understand the whole concept of numbers. Like it introduces them to each and every single digit that's in the number world. But this book helps the whole learning process in a more fun way. So this particular book works in tandem with number cards. So this number card is a flashcard which has a top right slit for visually impaired people to understand the orientation. And the features of it is like the number is embossed on it for the child to understand that this particular shape denotes the number in the number world. And also we have added braille onto the top of each flashcard. So for the child who's braille literate, they can like identify and differentiate between each card by using this braille as well. And there's a QR code which is used. I mean, which helps the app recognize what particular card is in front of it. And we also have dots which are embossed over here. So each a particular card, for whatever value it carries, there are the similar number of dots on those cards. So there are like two different modes on the app. You can either use the read now mode. So as and when you switch between products, it recognizes what's in front of it, or you can like individually go and choose that particular product and start interacting with the product.
The Counting Book, an interactive learning experience by Tactopus. Let us learn to count from 0 to 9. Place the number cards on top of the book to answer the questions on every page. You can write or brand your name on this. How many eggs can you find?
So as you flip through the first page of the book, it's asked like how many eggs can you find, and on the right there is a one egg which is embossed using foam over here in the shape of the egg, so that the child can touch and feel
How
like
many eggs can
and
you
count.
find?
So then how you respond and interact with this whole setup is you go shuffle through the cards and like choose the right answer and place that particular flashcard onto the page.
1. Yes, this is one egg.
So if it is the right answer, the app acknowledges that, and like, so for instance, that
How
like
many butterflies can you catch?
each number we use
How
different
many
elements to
trees
teach
can you find?
that. So here it asks how many trees can you find, and if you place the wrong answer,
5. Oh no, that's not correct. Can you count again?
so this is how it progresses for each number digit. So we have how many windows can you open, and this particular page has these flip windows where the child can like open and start counting. So it goes
How
on
many
to like
seashells? How
starts with
many
1 and
pencils
goes
can you
on to
count?
9, and then at the
How
last
many
page
roses
is
can you
where we
find?
have the 0.
How
So
many lies did you tell today?
so this is like how many lies did you tell today, and here is where the 0 comes into play. Like we've seen many creative answers, like children being very honest and they use multiple numbers, but here is where
How
you
many lies did you
teach
tell
the
today?
number 0. So
0. Yes, good children tell 0 lies or no lies.
yeah, so this is what the My Counting book is all about, and
The
these
Counting
are the
Book,
two books that
an
we have in
interactive
the
learning
whole
experience by
product range.
Tactopus.
And then we have a rhyme deck, if you can see over here. So this is something similar, like the whole working model is like you go onto the app and choose this module and you place these individual cards in front of it. And then what happens is it starts describing the tactile elements on the card. So each card like holds a particular rhyme, and the whole story that the rhyme walks you through is being denoted using multiple tactile like elements over here. So this is Hickory Dickory Dock. So it has the clock image and the mouse over here, but the mouse is being embossed using foam, and the clock is also embossed using a different material, so that the child can differentiate between the two of the elements. And yeah, so here the five little duckling wheels on the bus. So let me just give you a quick demo of how this works. So you just go to the rhyme deck module and you start reading, and then place the phone on the stand, and then you place a random. So here I'm gonna place Twinkle Twinkle Little Star.
We love stars. They're always twinkling and shining. Here are 2 stars on your card. Let's talk to them. Sing with me.
Twinkle, twinkle, little
So it
star.
goes on to sing the whole rhyme, and you can like switch on to the next rhyme by placing the
Let's go
next
on a
card.
bus. There is a bus in the center of the card with rounded wheels at bottom. What are we waiting for? Let's go.
Yeah. Similarly, there's Baba Black Sheep, there's Humpty Dumpty,
Round and round.
Hey,
and there's Jingle Bells, and there's like 8 different rhymes, and this is a complete pack that any parent or a school can purchase and add to their learning curriculum. And then we have is the most interesting product. I mean, like, this is my favorite product in our product range, and this is what we call the Hungry Number Monster. So this Hungry Number Monster is it's a gamified version of teaching children the whole concept of numbers, and not just the concept. It like slowly progresses towards basic arithmetics like addition, subtraction. So the how it is gamified is that this is a hungry monster who's hungry for number cards. So he like continuously shoots questions at at children, and like he asks like what is 1 plus 2, and give me a number greater than 5. What comes after 7? So these are the questions that he shoots out, and like the child is expected to feed the right number to the monster. So this is the monster's mouth, and this particular slit is where the card goes. So you feed the card to this monster, and he's satiated. So this particular setup will like when you unpack it, this is how it is, and you add this particular hair piece over here, and here is where the phone goes. So this is how the setup is, and you have the cards in front of you, and the child, as the app starts asking questions, they have to shuffle through the card range and like use the right answer to answer the question. So let me just walk you through the app.
Hi, Shiva.
So this is how the app looks, and it also has an additional
Shiva? Okay. We can
you can
continue the.
select
I guess.
the language. We have choose the level based on the child, count the sound, what's after, and it slowly progresses toward double digit, like the same one, feed me numbers and value of places. And as you move towards the end, there's like basic arithmetic, addition, subtraction. So this is a range of 30 different levels that helps with learning of the number world. So I'll start with something simple
Shiva?
for the demo. So I'll
Hi.
use like what's after the single digit version. So
Hola, I'm the math monster. I'm so hungry for your number cards. Feed me the right card at the right time, and make sure the cut corner of the card is always on your top right side. Good luck. Let's see if you can feed me numbers that come after. Give me a number after 1.
so it just asks like give me a number which is after 1. So I'll just go with 2 over here and feed it to the monster.
Yum, I'm happy with 2. Please remove the card to continue. Feed me a number that's after 4.
So it asks me what is the number after 4. So if I give the wrong answer,
Oh no, I didn't want 3. You lost 1 life. Let's try again.
so as you notice, like
You
there's
have a
a
happy tummy yummy score of 1.
so there's a timer to it, and the child is expected to give the monster, I mean like feed the number card to the monster within that time limit, and also the child wrong answer, they lose 1 life. And as you lose when you lose 3 lives, the game ends, or
Shiva?
as you have answered all the questions, the game ends and you get a score. So this also helps like as the game, if
Saloni, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Now you can continue.
Okay. Hi. Sorry.
I
Yeah.
think Shiva got excited with demonstrations.
Yes. Okay. So yes, so as you guys saw, lots of products with lots of sensors incorporated in how we develop them. If you want more demos, you can reach out to Shiva at tactopus.com. He's very excited to give demos always. I will just sort of share the presentation and move on to how you can uh, build some of these yourself, or how would you even know if these are the right products for you and your child? And it's not only about these products. Whenever you go out to a store outside or you're creating activities on your own, how do you know which are the right ones to sort of work and look at? And we'll look at all of that from a sensory point of view, right? So I'm just gonna share my screen again. Can you see my screen, Karen?
Yes.
Cool. So we are at what you can do. Um, so the core comes down to the fact that every child is different, with or without disabilities, and their needs are special and they are very diverse, which makes it our responsibility to sort of know what our child is like, what their preferences are, what they like, what they avoid. And especially with the children that we work with or our own kids, uh, we need to really understand um, what their preferences are. And this might sound like a lot of responsibility, right? Like how do I do this? Which is where we come in to sort of give you a framework on how you can go about uh, deciphering, your child's behavior, and putting it together in a form that lets you take decisions in the future. Um, so, step one, observe your child's response to sensory stimuli, right? Um, your child is never sits in a place, is always moving. Think about why. Is there an alternate behavior that stops that, or maybe that helps the child learn better? You think that that's not helping them focus, but maybe that helps them focus better, right? So we need to sort of dig deep into that. This is something usually that specialists do anyway, but as parents, what can you do? We have a checklist sort of thing for you to make it easy. It's called the sensory preference checklist that incorporates and lists down specific questions or behaviors that your child might be doing. You should sort of make a note of the behaviors, the things that you think other children don't do. Whenever you observe such things, really trust your intuition. Note those down and go with those to your experts. I'm sure you're doing that already. But we have, in case you do not know where to start, we have under every sense listed down about 10 kind of behaviors that are showcased by children typically who have either hypo or hypersensitivity to these specific senses. So these are simple check boxes. So if I could take you through what you see on the screen right now, uh, under the visual sense, it asks you simple questions like, does your child like looking at bright colors, or does he or she turn away from bright lights? Right? So you'll just make simple check, like you'll just tick those boxes, and whichever side has more ticks, you will know whether your child uh, seeks that sensory input or avoids that sensory input. Your child could also be neutral if both sides balance out or cancel out. Of course, the actual way of looking at it, the clinical way, is much more complex, but this is a good starting point for parents because it gives you a clear likes, dislikes kind of a clarity broken down into the seven senses. You should also be making note of specific triggers. So maybe your child does not dislike all tastes, but just dislikes sweet, or is turned off by a particular smell that maybe comes from, your bed sheets. So maybe it's a detergent. So you could make notes such as that, which will help you move into actionable items. Uh, Step two is summarizing all of this into a sensory profile. Um, so everything that you saw here, like you would have realized, okay, visual input my child seeks, auditory input my child is neutral, or tactile input my child avoids. You could list that all down into this single sheet. It is a PDF that I guess we'll share via Midhun, to everyone who has registered. So you could make use of this yourself. And how this really comes in handy, this simple piece of paper, is that you have a summary in one place. And at times when you do not have the mental bandwidth or energy to be thinking about why is my child doing this, you have a quick reference uh, piece of paper to be able to analyze the behavior. You could also and should also share this with your close friends, your neighbors, the educators that the child goes to. And it's something that they would keep updating over time with new behaviors that are observed. Another good way of using this is when you know that these are the specific inputs that they seek. Uh, these are things that you could use as awards for reinforcing behaviors or things like that. And this also behaves like a cheat sheet for for enabling you to choose the right products, right? So, for example, if your child really likes pressure, then you know that you need to look for a weighted blanket. And so you're basically taking results from here and applying that to what you need. This is also, you'll get more details from when you speak with your experts and such, and of course, the specialists can give you more information. But it's also good to be, as parents, be empowered by the knowledge of why you were recommended to get a weighted blanket, or why you were recommended to get color coded products, why are you recommended to take textured um, sort of input products, right? And then the next step, for especially for learning products, which is where the sort of domain that we work in, you map these likes and dislikes and preferences to the learning outcome and assess products with that lens. So, for example, if you know that your child really likes colors and is also takes in information through their sense of touch, but they are not great with say numbers or counting or sequencing. Um, you something like the number line, which is an image on the page right now, would be a perfect product because you can sort by color. So the child is really engaged with the color and the tactile matching. It's a matching activity. But as an end result of that, ends up learning counting and sequencing and getting practice for that. So look, so you're basically taking your sensory profile as a cheat sheet. It's a checklist, and when you're going shopping or your child gets attracted to something, you keep adding on to it, subtracting it, and understanding where the preferences are coming from. How can I break an activity into, okay, this is giving them visual input, tactile input, this bit they like, this bit they don't like. Another component uh, really is, what do you do if you've found a product that is, it matches 80%, but I wish it just didn't have this tactile because my kid hates tactile, right? Or I just wish it didn't have yellow or some such. This is where there are two things that you could do at this point. One is, yes, go to experts. um, you could adapt things yourself. You should customize and adapt all the products that are available, or activities. This does not apply only to products, right? It applies to everything. um, you could also be speaking to your therapist. If you do not know who, you could be, we will be happy to help. You could connect with us. But I would also really urge you to just find out who is the original maker of the product and write to them or call them up and say, if you could just make this little change, it would be inclusive for my child. And you'll be surprised at how often uh, creators and makers would be considerate, and that would also help so many other parents whose children might be facing the similar issue. So that's another thing that you could do. um, I will be closing this now so that we can open for questions. But if this was useful, and if you want to work together on something, or if you have specific questions, you could note down our numbers and email IDs and reach out to us um, whenever you want, and we'll be happy to help. We typically work with the younger age group, but we'd be happy to work with a variety of age groups depending on the specific need that you might have. That's it. I'm open for questions now. So, if anything. Karen, do you want to add something? Or I guess we can open it.
Yeah.
We receive questions, but at the same time, if there's any live questions that anyone has right now, let's take them first. We also have Nina on standby. If there's anything specific.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? You can unmute yourself and ask the question. Also, like if you want to drop the question in the chat, you can drop it in the chat as well. Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Saloni, for this wonderful presentation. And Shiva was taking so much of effort to going one product after the other. I like that monster thing. That's very cute, and that's something that's like something that imbibes what learning is. There is some kind of gamification. There is all kind of sensors involved, and you basically have to use your analytical skills to do the whole thing. I absolutely loved it. I mean, when we were kids, we never had these kind of toys to play with. So this is something, even if it's like for a regular child, this really would improve what you call as an experiential learning and their learning output. Thanks a lot for this presentation, guys. So I have a quick question for you. One thing I noticed was that the sound was more of from the US or American accent. Is it because the audio language processing only allows that kind of a noise, or is it because we don't have a solution yet for that?
Saloni, we can't hear.
So sorry about that. We actually have all our products in multiple Indian languages as well, which is all human recorded voices. For English, we actually keep experimenting. So we do have a bunch, multiple tonalities. And while a lot of people have come to us speaking about human toned sounds, which we do intend to add, we have seen a lot of success with children with the American accent. Like it's not as really an American accent, this particular one. But since we also work a lot with children with vision impairment, and they listen to things on talkback mode, um, it's actually helped them quite a bit. But the solution that we are sort of trying to come up with is give you options to choose your own accent, so that you can really work with what suits you. Another thing that really works with digital sounds is, uh, and this is of course it will again vary child by child. We have had parents and educators tell us that because it is the same every time they hear it, it eases their auditory input processing because you're listening to the same exact same thing every time. Uh, but yes, I do agree completely on the Indian accent, especially since we work so much with rural audiences. Um, the Indian side of things has to happen.
Okay. Yeah. So I think this is something that came across even when the last design thinking workshop I was in. This is something that they were talking about, how to bring Indian content, Indian voices, even in terms of songs and all those things, how to bring the regional content and all those things.
Yes.
Interesting.
And also, Arjun, I don't know if it was made clear, but what we are absolutely okay with is adding the parent's voice or the child's voice themselves.
That makes
It's as
sense.
simple as sending us one.
Yeah. So we had one one child with visual impairment who was with us in that design thinking group. So he was telling, we all don't want to be speaking like Stephen Hawking, right? We would probably want our own voices to be heard.
Yes.
So this is something that probably you guys can also look at. And also, Saloni, how come? I mean, what happened? I mean, what is the part of your life that made you get attracted to this whole multi-sensory approach and working with children with special needs? I would love to know that.
Okay, there is not too much of a personal story there. In fact, the whole project, which doesn't look anything like what it is right now, started about 4 years back when we were in college. I was in college with another friend of mine, Chandni. And I am a professionally an interaction designer. It's my job to use technology in ways that can solve real life problems. And my personal inclination uh, is working on causes for equity and equality. And I honestly think that equal access to education is the only way to do that. Um, so I guess two and two came together. Um, and yeah, we just got started, and we realized that this was really needed. More and more people just started appreciating it so much that we had to do it. And over time, like we're now a team of 7. So many more wonderful people have joined us who do some have personal stories. People join us for various reasons. And now I would say the thing that keeps us going is really the impact that we've been able to create. Um, and the children who now have access to so much. Uh, though there is, of course, like a long, long way to go. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think Karen was asking whether Meenal has any questions. So Meenal, a lot of the questions I've got in relation how these tools can be used for children with ADHD, right? Like taking it from physical impairments to a cognitive space. Whether these tools will work with them because I mean they have, they are multisensory. So how this can be used for children with ADHD?
Yep. Meena, are you here?
I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah, Meenal, we can hear you.
Hi, everyone.
Is your video on, Meenal? Yeah. Now you're visible.
Can you see me?
One second. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, can you? Is it a question for ADHD?
Yeah.
Child with ADHD, how these TLMs can be used?
Yeah.
Was that the question?
Yeah, that's a question.
Yeah. Okay. I feel that some of the, like if you take up the Monster product, ADHD children, what is it we want to do first? The goal for an ADHD child is developing sitting tolerance to do seat work. That will be the first thing so that they manage mainstream school or even a special school. So, if I'm looking at that goal, there are a lot of products which has been demonstrated today that could be used in 20-minute session with a child because it is more, it's short and the span of attention of an ADHD child is short. So what happens is the child will sit for only about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So in these products we have demonstrated, the product is small units. So the child we do 1 unit, go for a walk, come back and do the next unit. But we can develop about 20 minutes state work tolerance for the child when the child starts, but also learning will take place. And for an ADHD child, the task has to be made purposeful and meaningful. Then they will start settling down, learning.
Okay. Thank you, Meenal. Thank you.
So I think a few people were not able to hear Meena ma'am. So I'll just quickly summarize in a sentence, if that's okay.
Yeah.
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 So essentially, what she was saying was that for children with ADHD, the primary goal is to build sitting tolerance, and get them interested in what they are sitting down for. and using multiple senses is a great way of doing that. I would like to add to that we have actually tested out a bunch of these with children with ADHD. And because you are hearing, touching, and seeing the same thing at the same time, for children other than those who might go into sensory overload at this point, for most others, it actually really helps them focus. And we've had people who, do not engage with math for say even 5 minutes at a time, sit down and work with it for over 20-25 minutes. Um, so I think that is how the multisensory sort of plays in. It definitely increases engagement, but also it helps you focus because you're not getting distracted by anything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Does anybody have any question? You can unmute yourself and ask the question. So we are open to, I mean, if you have any doubts about how to use these tools and sensory play, or in terms of incorporating in your learning classrooms, you can probably ask the question.
Meena ma'am, you are raising your hand. Do you have something to add? We can't hear you.
Midun, can you unmute Meena?
The tools we have used, can you hear me now?
Yes.
The tools we have developed is in small units, but it's one consolidated learning activity.
Yeah.
It is not the flow will never get digressed from what the child has to learn as a learning activity, but it is done it in small units. So this helps a child who is restless, fidgety, or with attention deficit or hyperactivity, how to sit for that one few minutes, learn something, and take a break, come back and restart. And the restarting is not difficult for the child. I just wanted to add that point. Thank
Sure.
you.
Thank you. Sure. Meena ma'am helps us a lot with ensuring that our products actually work. Um, so she really knows of more ways to use our products than even we do a lot of times. Yeah. Midun, we cannot hear you. You're on mute.
I'm sorry. I said, we all need these mentors, again, especially when you are trying out innovative solutions. Very critical that we have these mentors to help us through the whole journey. I think we'll probably take the questions we got in chat and people have asked on the Google Forms. So one question was, if my child is hyperactive, how we can engage him in any activity? I mean, it's just exactly opposite of ADHD. How would you probably engage a child who is hypo?
You guys are still.
Ma'am, will you take that?
Yeah. Yeah. So if the child is a hypoactive child, I would start the child with just taking one of our tools which you saw, the monster board,
Okay.
just keep it at a distance. The child may just walk to see what it is out of curiosity, and the child will start exploring it. Once the child starts exploring it, one can engage with the child to start interacting with the material. So usually what happens is many times a child with hyperactivity is because of lack of stimulation. So the stimulation needs to be understood why the child is hypoactive. So I think if I'm looking at it from that space, we need to work on the child by placing the tool at a place and allowing the child to walk towards it and then start engaging in that.
Okay. Yeah. Do we have any questions from people from inside? Manas, Nuzad, Damni, does any of you have any questions as such? Ruma? I think participants are very silent. So probably we'll ask one more question from the chat. Right. If Okay. What are the deciding factors for designing any sensory toys or creating sensory toys for children? I think that's one more question that's asked.
Um, I am assuming here that you're talking about creating this for one child, your particular child, or are you talking about mass creating a toy?
The question is
Okay. I'll just take both sides.
yeah, yeah.
So we have sort of covered it in our presentation. So if you're working for an individual child, the first step would be to understand the preferences of the child, and then incorporating the senses according to the preferences of the child. Right? So, for example, if you want to be using texture as a stimuli, you would add a lot of texture to products, and vice versa. Whereas if you're creating products for everyone, like if you're someone who is uh, like Tactopus, creating products uh, to be sold in mass, or you're just a teacher who is creating for years, right? You have 50 students coming in. We typically suggest incorporating as many senses as you can, but keeping the option of being able to switch off one or two as needed. So, for example, if in our products, if you take, we focus a lot on textures, and so far you do not have the ability to remove textures because we have been working a lot with children with vision impairment. In the next steps in the future, we are actually thinking of creating options in which you could say that I do not want a texture because my child, say, has an OCD about flat surfaces, or I need this. So we are giving the option to parents to record their own audio so that we can put that on the book, because my voice is the only thing the child responds to. So build something which has uh, everything, like has multiple senses, but also the option to customize, because every child is different at the end.
Okay.
So if you do not give the option to customize or to yourself, even if you're working with multiple people, then that product will fail for like a very minor reason. Um, so keep that flexibility in place.
Okay. Yeah, there is one question private chat, which is basically asking, can this be adopted for a mass class? I think probably he's mentioning that it can be adopted to a classroom setup.
Yes, we actually do have these being used in classrooms. We typically suggest, and it depends on the product itself, but we typically suggest if you're not able to get enough product for one unit per child, you could have about three, four children sharing a product at a time if they are collaborative in nature. Um, we also, so currently you would need, at least for the digital products, you would need a device per unit, right? Which becomes a barrier oftentimes in classrooms if it's not a smart classroom. So we are looking at solutions in which it could be a single device kind of solution. So, like with our books, we give instruction booklets which have suggested activities that you could do in circle time, that you could do in groups of 10, groups of three individuals. Uh, so there are multiple ways in which schools are incorporating it right now. Typically, like the standard answer would be like keep the ratio 1:3. Um, but of course, like people are using it in a lot of ways.
Okay. Great, great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also we also do acknowledge the fact that you have in the same classroom have children at different levels. So like a lot of the schools that we work with actually get our complete math kit. So there are about 12 different products if I'm correct. Um, so in that situation, then you know that this group, so you divide them into groups of five, say, and you know that this group needs to interact with single digit numbers at this point, but this group has advanced to addition, and so you could mix match products like that also. Uh, and if the question is about being able to incorporate it into general classrooms, the product is designed for inclusion. We do have mainstream schools using the product in their general classrooms as well.
Okay. Yeah, and it makes sense because it works with all kind of
Yes.
learning goals and all kinds of children. That's great. Karen, is there any question from the previous Google form that you want to take, or if anybody has, I mean, we'll take another 5 minutes for the questions. So if anybody has any questions, you can ask, or we'll take the question from the Google form or chat that we've got. Karen, is there any question that you want to address in particular?
No, not really. Somebody on the chat actually asked how long do you think that a child will engage when we give them the Hunger Monster product. I don't know if you heard earlier, but we've had success with children who don't sit down at all, who lack concentration, have sat up for up to 20 to 25 minutes. So imagine if they have other children to play along with them. That can only be extended.
Okay.
Yeah. So, if I may, I would sort of compare the Hungry Monster to, say, Candy Crush, like in mainstream game language. You could play it for 5 minutes. Each level is pretty short. It's only 10 questions, 15 seconds each. So you could actually be done in 2 minutes per level. But there are 30 different levels, and each level can be played infinite number of times. So if the child is engaged, is making progress, you could play it for like till your battery lasts,
Okay.
basically.
Nice.
So, but the success levels matter, depend on the child. Again, how comfortable are they? Are they engaged? Do they know the topic? Because it's Maths Monster board is a practice board. You're learning by doing, but it's the understanding is that you already know 1 2 3 4. You're not learning 1 2 3 4 on this, you're practicing. So if they don't already know the concept, then I guess they would hang around for lesser time. But if they are at their practice level, then it would be much longer.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that response, Saloni. And okay, I think we will close the session. Yeah, it was wonderful having you two people here, and I think I learned a lot from seeing all these products. And I was just actually feeling sad that we didn't have these kind of things to play around, when we were kids. Uh, and especially a special thanks to Shiva for taking so much of pain in terms of demonstrating those products, and ma'am for giving those wonderful explanations. And it was lovely having you guys. And probably, I mean, we should see whether we can, I will probably put you in touch with few of the organizations that I know who might be benefited from the same. So let's do that. And special thanks to all the people who could join us. And I think probably we'll have next Saturday. I think we have Hack Code, who basically teaches coding to children with special needs joining us. But it will be either next Saturday or on Wednesday. I will update you on the same.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have a good evening.
Good evening.
Ta-ra.